Nobody was prepared for the words Tamar Braxton chose this time, and once they hit the internet, there was no pulling them back. What started as a cryptic late-night post spiraled into what fans are now calling one of the darkest revelations of her entire career. Not about music. Not about relationships. But about fear. Control. And a silence, she says, was forced on her from the inside out. Tamar didn't name names. She didn't spell it out. She didn't have to. When she said, "They want me to stay silent," the internet froze. Because the "they" wasn't the public. It wasn't the blogs. It wasn't trolls. According to people close to the situation, Tamar was talking about the people who were supposed to protect her, the ones closest to her life, her bloodline, her legacy. Within minutes, fans began connecting dots that had been ignored for years. The breakdowns that felt dismissed. The sudden disappearances. The moments she hinted at being unsafe without ever explaining why. Old clips resurfaced. Old arguments suddenly sounded like warnings. And then came the leaks, alleged messages, whispered recordings, insiders claiming Tamar had been begging to speak freely long before she ever did. Social media erupted. Twitter wars exploded. Some accused her of exaggerating. Others said this was the bravest thing she's ever done. Celebrities reacted in code. Family members went silent. And that silence only made the story feel heavier, more dangerous, more real. Because when someone finally says they were afraid to speak, and the people around them say nothing, that's when the story stops being gossip. And starts feeling like a threat no one wants exposed. The first shock didn't come from a headline. It came from a whisper that felt louder than a scream. Tamar Braxton went live late at night, eyes heavy, voice shaking, choosing her words like someone standing on thin ice. She didn't accuse. She didn't explain. She simply said she had been scared to speak for a long time, and that the pressure to stay quiet came from the very place people assumed she'd be safest. That was enough to detonate the internet. Within minutes, clips were ripped from the live and reposted everywhere. Twitter exploded. Fans replayed the video frame by frame, analyzing every pause, every breath, every glance off camera. When Tamar said, "I've been protecting people who never protected me," it felt like a confession and a warning all at once. According to insiders, that line alone sent shockwaves through her inner circle. What followed was chaos disguised as concern. Alleged screenshots began circulating, said to be messages Tamar sent to friends months ago, talking about feeling trapped, controlled, and emotionally unsafe. One message, allegedly sent at 3:17 a.m., read, "If I say the wrong thing, everything gets worse." Another claimed, "They don't want me healed. They want me quiet." No one could verify the messages, but their timing made them feel uncomfortably real. Fans immediately went back through years of footage. Old reality TV scenes where Tamar was shouted down during family arguments. Moments where she stormed out in tears, labeled dramatic, unstable, too much. Suddenly those moments looked different. Less like outbursts. More like pressure leaks. The narrative started to shift from "Tamar is difficult" to "Tamar has been carrying something alone." Behind the scenes, sources claim the reaction from those closest to her was swift and firm. Not public. Private. Phone calls. Warnings. Reminders about family first and keeping things in-house. According to one insider, Tamar received multiple calls urging her to rest, log off, and not let emotions create bigger problems. The tone, they say, wasn't concern. It was control. The most chilling part was the silence that followed from people fans expected to speak up. No immediate statements. No reassurance. No public support. Just absence. And in celebrity culture, silence is rarely neutral. It's strategic. Fans noticed who went quiet and when. Screenshots of unfollows and muted comments began circulating. People started asking why a woman clearly in distress was being met with distance instead of protection. Tamar's emotional state became the center of the storm. According to someone close to her, she broke down after the live ended, sobbing uncontrollably, saying she'd said too much and not enough at the same time. That contradiction haunted the moment. She wanted to tell the truth, but the cost of telling it felt too high. That's what made her words feel dangerous. Then came the alleged audio. Not explicit. Not incriminating. Just fragments of Tamar speaking softly, sounding exhausted, talking about being watched, about feeling like every move she made had to be approved. The clips spread fast, stripped of context, debated endlessly. Some called it proof. Others called it manipulation. What no one could deny was the fear in her voice. Social media turned into a war zone. Hashtags trended demanding Tamar be left alone. Others accused her of weaponizing trauma. Celebrity commentators jumped in, some urging compassion, others questioning her motives. One well-known figure posted, "When someone finally speaks, after years of silence, listen before you judge." That post alone went viral, adding fuel to an already raging fire. Insiders claim this moment has been building for years. Tamar allegedly confided in a small circle that she felt boxed in by expectations, obligations, and unspoken rules. That speaking out would mean consequences she wasn't ready to face. The live, they say, wasn't planned. It was a breaking point. What made this chapter even darker was the resurfacing of past incidents. Hospitalizations. Sudden retreats from public life. Cryptic posts about survival and faith. Fans began connecting dots that had always been there but never fully examined. The pattern felt too consistent to ignore. As the night stretched on, Tamar went silent again. No follow-up. No clarification. Just quiet. According to insiders, that silence wasn't peace. It was fear. Fear of backlash. Fear of family fallout. Fear of losing what little control she had left over her own story. And just when it seemed like the storm might settle, a rumor began circulating that Tamar had been advised by someone she trusts to stop speaking immediately, that this is bigger than you think. That line spread like wildfire, because it suggested layers still unseen, truth still buried. Fans are now asking the same question over and over. If this is only what Tamar felt safe enough to hint at, what is she still holding back? Because whatever she was trying to say, it clearly wasn't meant to come out like this. And if the pressure to stay silent is real, then the fallout from breaking that silence has only just begun. And as people wait for the next move, one thing feels undeniable. Tamar didn't just crack open a family conversation. She cracked open something that doesn't want daylight at all. By the next morning, the tone had shifted from shock to something far more unsettling, fear mixed with strategy. Tamar still hadn't clarified her words, but the people around her were moving fast. According to multiple alleged insiders, the phone started ringing before sunrise. Not from fans. Not from media. From people inside her own circle urging her to stop, breathe, and most importantly, not say anything else. That detail alone sent the internet into a frenzy. Because when someone is clearly distressed and the first response is silence instead of support, it raises uncomfortable questions. Fans noticed Tamar's comments were suddenly limited. Certain posts disappeared. A few cryptic stories vanished within minutes of being uploaded. Screenshots spread like wildfire, with captions reading, "Why is she deleting everything? And who told her to stop?" Then came the leaks. Alleged private messages began. Fans immediately drew comparisons to old family confrontations that once felt like reality TV drama, but now looked darker in hindsight. Scenes where Tamar tried to express pain and was shut down. Moments where she was labeled unstable for reacting emotionally while others remained calm and in control. Suddenly, the power imbalance became the story. Social media chaos exploded. Twitter X turned into a battleground. One side accused Tamar of spiraling and exaggerating. The other accused the people around her of emotional manipulation and silencing. Hashtags trended demanding answers. Reaction channels uploaded non-stop, breaking down her words like evidence in a trial. Every pause was analyzed. Every tear slowed down and replayed. Then celebrities started reacting, carefully. No one named names, but the messages were clear. Protect people when they are vulnerable. Silence isn't always consent. Control doesn't always look loud. Those posts added gasoline to the fire. Fans started tagging Tamar, urging her to speak, while others begged her to stay quiet for her own safety. The contradiction was cruel. According to an alleged insider, Tamar was overwhelmed to the point of physical exhaustion. Crying spells. Shaking. Questioning whether she'd destroyed her family by saying too much, or whether staying silent any longer would destroy her instead. That internal war became the heart of the story. And then something chilling happened. A short, alleged voice note began circulating, Tamar speaking softly, sounding tired, saying, "I just want peace, but peace comes with conditions." That line alone went viral. Commentators called it heartbreaking. Others called it manipulative. But no one could deny how defeated she sounded. Meanwhile, the silence from those closest to her grew louder. No public statements. No visible reassurance. Just distance. Fans noticed certain family-related posts remained untouched, while everything else was scrubbed. People began asking if Tamar was being protected or managed. Insiders claimed Tamar was advised to let this blow over, and reminded that speaking further could open doors that can't be closed. That phrasing terrified fans. What doors? What consequences? Why did it sound like a warning instead of care? As the hours passed, a new rumor began circulating, that Tamar had considered releasing a full statement explaining everything, but was talked out of it at the last minute. Supposedly, drafts existed. Long, emotional explanations she never posted. If true, it meant the public was only seeing fragments of a much bigger truth. By nightfall, Tamar posted one final message, a vague line about strength, survival, and trusting God when people disappoint you. No explanations. No follow-up. Just a verse and a heart emoji. The post felt like a goodbye, or a pause forced by pressure. Fans were left staring at their screens, unsettled. Because when someone says they're afraid to speak, and then suddenly goes quiet, it doesn't feel like closure. It feels like confirmation. And as speculation grew, one terrifying thought began to take hold across the internet. Maybe Tamar wasn't exaggerating. Maybe she really was being told to stay silent. And if that's true, then whatever she almost said next must be something powerful enough to scare everyone involved. Something that still hasn't come out. Something that might change everything. By the third day, the conversation had crossed into territory that felt heavier than celebrity drama. This wasn't about trending clips anymore. It was about power, fear, and the cost of telling a truth when too many people benefit from your silence. Tamar still hadn't explained herself fully, and that absence became the loudest statement of all. According to alleged insiders, Tamar retreated completely. No lives. No interviews. No casual posts. Her circle reportedly tightened overnight, with access limited to a handful of people she trusted. Friends said she wasn't hiding, she was protecting what little peace she had left. The pressure to clarify was relentless, but so were the warnings not to. Once it's out, it can't be put back, she was allegedly told. That sentence echoed everywhere. Then the internet did what it always does when answers don't come, it dug deeper. Old messages resurfaced that fans claimed showed Tamar hinting at control years ago, vague captions about choosing silence to survive, prayers asking for covering, lyrics about being boxed in. Individually, they looked harmless. Together, they formed a pattern. People began asking whether Tamar had been signaling for help all along, and whether everyone had missed it, because it didn't come wrapped in a scandal. The alleged insider leaks intensified. One anonymous account claimed Tamar had documented her experiences privately for years, writing things down, because she didn't feel safe speaking them. Another insisted there were recordings, not of crimes, not of violence, but of conversations where she was urged to stop expressing herself publicly, for the good of everyone. The idea that control could be quiet, polite, and persistent made people uncomfortable. Celebrity reactions shifted again. A respected artist posted, "Silence can be survival." Another wrote, "Family dynamics can be the hardest chains to break." Still no names. Still no confirmations. But the message was clear. What Tamar described wasn't unfamiliar to people who've lived under public scrutiny and private pressure. The backlash also hardened. Critics accused Tamar of vague posting to manipulate sympathy. They demanded facts, names, proof. Others pushed back hard, arguing that forcing a distressed person to perform their trauma for validation was exactly the problem. The debate split audiences down the middle, and neither side was willing to budge. Behind the scenes, Tamar's emotional state reportedly fluctuated between relief and terror. Relief that she had finally said something. Terror about what saying more might cost. According to someone close to her, she kept repeating, "I just want to live my life without permission." That sentence hit differently. It wasn't about fame. It was about autonomy. Then came the moment that changed everything. Tamar posted a brief video, less than 30 seconds. No accusations. No details. Just her looking straight into the camera and saying, "I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing safety. And I'm choosing silence for now." The video vanished within minutes, but not before it was saved, reposted, and dissected everywhere. That "for now" became the cliffhanger no one could ignore. Because it implied this wasn't over. It implied she still had more to say, just not yet. Fans rallied, urging patience, urging protection, urging the world to let her breathe. Others scoffed, calling it dramatic. But even critics admitted the moment felt real. As the noise began to die down, a chilling realization settled in. This wasn't a story with a neat ending. There was no exposé coming. No explosive tell-all scheduled. Just a woman drawing a boundary in a space that punishes boundaries. The silence that followed felt deliberate. Strategic. Necessary. And that's what made it terrifying. Because when someone finally speaks, after years of holding back, and then chooses silence again, it usually means the truth is bigger than the moment. Bigger than the platform. Bigger than the risk. Whatever Tamar was trying to protect herself from didn't disappear when the hashtags faded. It simply retreated into the shadows, waiting. And as fans wait, one question lingers louder than all the rest. If this is what Tamar felt safe enough to say out loud, what is she still keeping to herself? Because when silence is chosen for survival, it's never the end of the story. It's the pause before something changes forever. If you've made it this far, then you already understand why this story can't just be brushed aside or forgotten. This isn't messy gossip for clicks. This is a woman telling the world she felt afraid to speak, and that alone should stop everyone in their tracks. Stories like this don't come with neat endings or instant answers. They come with silence, tension, and truths that surface slowly, sometimes painfully. Now we need to hear from you. Do you believe Tamar was warning us about something deeper, something she couldn't fully say out loud? Or do you think the pressure of fame and family finally reached a breaking point? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because these conversations matter more than ever, and the more people talking, the harder it becomes for uncomfortable truths to be buried. Make sure you like this video so it doesn't get lost or quietly pushed aside, and subscribe with notifications turned on. If Tamar speaks again, if she breaks that silence, clarifies her words, or reveals what she's been protecting herself from, you'll want to be here the moment it happens. This story isn't over. It's paused. And in stories like this, what comes after the pause is usually the part that changes everything.